We've taken one stab at a data app in Streamlit. Now let's see what else we can do. Welcome to this video on Streamlit. My name is Kevin Fiesel, and I am the proprietor of Catalaxy Services LLC, a consulting firm which specializes in work all across the data platform space, especially SQL Server. The prior video covered several important Streamlit capabilities, such as caching data, using select boxes to populate drop-down lists, and using tabs on screen to separate out a variety of visuals, such as Plotly charts and tables from Pandas data frames. In this video, I'm going to cover some of the other options that are available to you when working with Streamlit. It won't be comprehensive in nature. Instead, I'll aim to give you an idea of what's possible with the platform and point you in the direction of where you can learn more. With that, let's go to the demo. Wait, that's 2 videos in a row without a classroom segment? Something has gone wrong here, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it, though not in this video, so see you in the demo. Here we are in Visual Studio Code, where we left off after the last video. I have what I would consider a perfectly reasonable app, though we certainly could do more. With that in mind, I guess let's do some more stuff. The first thing I want to do is give you a quick refresher of the app. Let's switch to my browser where I have the application already running. We can see that I have no filters for violation code, ticket status, or notice level. Let's switch the ticket status to paid. That refreshes the page, as we can see with the way that it scrolled us back up to the top of the screen. It also updated my number of tickets per month chart. If I include a filter on notice level, maybe setting it to determination, I'll see another update. Basically, as soon as I change the drop-down item, it resets the page and makes its updates. Suppose I didn't want to do that. Instead, I want to have a button that controls applying my filters and also gives me a quick label of my current filters. Let's implement that now. Switching back to the code, I'll scroll down to the sidebar widgets section, line 86. We first lay out each of the drop-down lists as select boxes. Then, starting on line 110, we have a set of if statements, followed by the aggregation. Let's change this behavior up just a little bit. First, I'll reshape this code a little, adding a Streamlit form to the sidebar and slotting it right under the filter's header. Then, everything inside this with block will be inside the form. One really important thing to note is that I now need to remove the st.sidebar references and replace them with st. We are inside of the form at this point, so we don't want to force anything into the sidebar. The form itself will remain in the sidebar, so we'll still get the visual aesthetic that we need. After doing that, I next want to add a form submit button, calling it apply filters. The way that buttons work in Streamlit is simple. When a user selects a button, the handler becomes true. That means my next line of code is fairly straightforward. If submitted, then we do the thing that we want to do, assuming somebody clicked on the button. Well, the thing I want to do is apply these filters. To do so, let's take the if blocks below and move them into this section. But now I need to make note of the fact that I'm referencing tickets by month, which means that I need to call get tickets by month earlier in the process. Now, you might be thinking, hey Kevin, why not simply take this entire sidebar section and move it to the bottom of the page? This will make the flow of control make more sense, right? Well, yes, but also no. If we look at the code, we can see the progression. Get tickets by month, filter tickets by month, then aggregate and use tickets by month data. But if I move the sidebar below the point where we're aggregating filtered data, we'll display the results and only then would we perform our filter, meaning that users wouldn't actually see the filtered data on screen. They would see the unfiltered data each time. That would make for a rather confusing experience, so let's not do that. Instead, I'll keep the sidebar elements between getting tickets by month and then using the data. Let's return to the web application and see what this does for us. I'll rerun the app and we can see a bounding box around my filters. That's pretty neat. I can select various entries for violation code, ticket status, and notice level, but notice that nothing changes on the right-hand side. That's because I haven't applied the filters yet. To do so, I'll select the Apply Filters button. And now we see the filters. I can also change these filters without selecting the button, and well, that's a little confusing at this point because I'm showing filtered results, but no longer have the filters themselves on screen. To rectify this, we'll switch back to VS Code. Then, inside of each of the if blocks for violation code, ticket status, and notice level, I'll add in a call to st.caption, which is an option for displaying a caption. We might apply this caption below a figure or use it to describe an image. Here, I'll use the caption to let the user know what the current settings are. We'll save the page and then return to the browser. After I rerun this app, let's select one option for each of violation code, ticket status, and notice level. We'll select Apply Filters, and that shows us the updated page, as well as the 3 filters down at the bottom. As I mess around with this, we can see that the filter captions appear and disappear. Admittedly, the contrast on this is pretty low, so that's not a great experience. But we can fix that. Switching back to the code, I want to note that we can render color, either the text color or the background color of our caption. I'd like to keep the gray for the filtering by bit, but show the actual filter in green. To do so, I can type in the colon key, then the color I want, such as green. I'll then take the text that I want in green and surround it in brackets. I'll do that for violation code, ticket status, and notice level, and then I'll save the page one more time. Returning to the application, I will need to rerun it again and apply filters. Now my filter color is a higher contrast color, so it's a little easier to read. One other thing I'm thinking about here is, I have over 20 years worth of data, but what if my user just wants to filter in on a specific range? I know that we can use Plotly to narrow down a section in a chart, but that wouldn't help us if we switched tabs. So let's make the customer's life easier. We'll return to Visual Studio Code again and add some more filters. In particular, I'm going to add inputs for the start and end date that we want to focus on here. I'll start by adding a new subheader named Date Range. Then I'll get the minimum and maximum dates from our dataset. After doing this, I'll create 2 date inputs, one for the start date and the other for the end date. I'll format them in the onTrueDate format and set minimum, maximum, and default values for each of the boxes. That way, end users will know what the valid range is. The next step, as you might imagine, is to add in operations on form submission if the user did set either start date or end date. I'll treat the 2 form inputs separately, as it is possible that a person leaves one blank while filling in the other, so we will need to handle that possibility. While I'm at it, I'll also add similar captions for these dates. Returning to the app, we can see that the date ranges appear, and I can choose from among the start and end dates. Let's pick some arbitrary dates here. Then, when I'm done, I'll select the Apply Filters, and there we go. I am now looking at a subset of the data. What's nice is I can then flip to the Raw Data tab and see that it only includes my date range. But what happens if a user picks a start date greater than the end date? Let's give that a try, setting the start date to any date larger than the end date. Then we'll select Apply Filters, and, well, not surprisingly, we don't have any results. Now, there are a few things that we could do here, but what I'll do is twofold. I would like to display a warning and then flip the start and end dates. Accordingly, let's go back to the code once more. I'm going to add another check below the notice level check and above the start date one. In it, we'll see if start date and end date both exist, and if start date is greater than end date. If so, I'll pop up a warning message telling the user what's wrong and explaining the behavioral change we're making. Then we'll continue with normal processing for start and end dates. Warning isn't the only pop-up we could use. There are also pop-ups for informational messages, errors, and even success. The latter is quite useful if you have a long-running task and you want to let the user know when it finishes. Returning to our browser, let's rerun once again, and we can see that the start and end dates are already positioned for our test. Let's apply the filters once more, and we can see the warning blurb as well as our proper start and end dates. Now, there's obviously a lot more that we could do with Streamlit, as a perusal of the docs will show, but I think that's enough for one video. And there we are. We have made the Streamlit dashboard a little more complex, bumping us up to about 170 lines of code. But at the same time, I think we've improved the functionality a bit. In the next video, we are going to pivot entirely and see how we can tie in Azure OpenAI. Stay tuned for that. We'll have links and show notes in the description below. And until we see each other in the next video, take care.